what do you need to know right now about where AI is in mid 2025? So that's what we're going to focus on for the last part of this presentation. I think it's particularly important for procurement professionals to understand AI, even if you have any personal concerns or maybe learning a new thing feels uncomfortable. But you must, as procurement professionals, in my opinion, understand AI. And there's two reasons, because there's two hats on this topic that we have as procurement professionals. I've talked a lot in the prior sections about being a user. We have to know how to use these tools so that we're not left behind and that we can accelerate forward. Ed Mills's concept about aware to ready to forward. We need to be forward because workforce in the future will need to understand these tools. And we are procurers. We have to know it because we have to support our end users in procuring these tools or contracting for these tools. And we need to be appropriately wowed. What do I mean by appropriately wowed? I don't want to be shown something in a platform or in a SaaS provider that is showing something that they are presenting with a big ta-da that is readily available today in open air ChatGPT or other tools. That's not saying it's not useful, but if it didn't truly solve a new or unique problem, we should have an appropriate level of wow. I hope you're following what I'm saying there. So trends on AI and SaaS offerings. So most major e-procurement and contract lifecycle management type platforms now have offer some form of AI features. I think there was some concern about moving too quickly into it because they were concerned you were going to be concerned. So they didn't want to overly do the AI and then have you kick their product because they say we're not ready for AI. But I think maybe that trepidation is gone. And I think almost all of the e-procurement and contract lifecycle management type vendors that you would probably deal with as platforms are offering some form of AI, searching across internal and external document libraries. I mean, the core of AI from all the way back to late 2022 is its large language models that have learned against a stack of documents. Well, any vendor who has a large stack of documents, like a lot of RFPs on hand or a lot of invoices on hand, et cetera, it's very, very, very easy for them to simply employ an AI layer that then accesses those to be able to make suggestions for you. That's a great example of there's a wow there, but it's not a, oh, wow, right? Because that is something that is available to you today if you build your own knowledge bases. Now, they have incorporated some of this new research out in the field kind of stuff, which was not as available, I would say, a year ago. And that's pretty common now. So both researching against internals and then truly pulling against externals. Smart intake forms that can make guesses, chatbots, of course, that know answers and can answer questions. Chatbot is another example of something that has been around for a while. There is some cut to it, but it's not that it's impossible to do or that it's over the top. For some of the CLM stuff, being able to compare against clauses, what moved, what changed, summarize documents, suggest how I build documents, evaluation, creating first cuts at RFPs, creating first cuts at contracts. You're seeing those kind of tools, spend analysis enablement, being able to do first cuts at classifying spend or doing initial insights on spend. You're seeing more and more of those kind of tools. But the functionality is going to work very widely across the vendors. Some features rely on really shallow kind of rules or basically light overlays of platform over an existing Gen AI platform. And some are deeper and more truly generative. And that's where I think it'll go. So just because the vendor says they're AI enabled, that doesn't inherently mean that it is transparent what's happening underneath it, that is really transformative, or that it's really value added. Is it going to be? I absolutely think it is. But this is, again, part of you as procurement professional understanding what AI does today over here so that when you're in a procurement event, that you have the appropriate level of that's new versus that's something a lot of people are doing. So if you're buying AI as a platform, if you're being asked to help support, we need to be able to turn on AI over here. And how do we do it? One thing to note, of course, is some of the vendors like Microsoft and Google, they're directly embedding the AI into tools and licenses that you already own, right? So Microsoft is actively employing Copilot into a lot of, as core to some of the platform. So part of the question is, does that require any change or notice or update to the contract, et cetera? I mean, you guys can be the judge of that based on interacting with your host. But if you are saying, I'm going to go out for AI, I want to go buy AI, get into, again, this concept that what you're acquiring is not necessarily the same super turnkey type solution if you're going and buying an ERP or an e-procurement platform. If you get into some sort of mentality that as much as you're buying a solution, you're buying toolkits, then it'll force certain questions for you to work with the end user to decompose what is it they're asking for and what is it that you're actually acquiring. So before you go and launch an RFP or review a proposal, ask your end users, like, what is it that we're buying? Are we buying access to the model? Are we buying tokens? Because a lot of these tools are constraining the amount of use that you have based on tokens. And so what's the cost line for tokens? Are we tuning this thing in a particular way? Are we asking for them to customize stuff? Are we asking them to deploy chatbots, et cetera? What happens to the data? Am I the owner of the data? Are you using it to retrain the model? Where is it stored? Who has it? Like, that's a very important question. Inputs, outputs, privacy. Is this going to be embedded into tools that we already have? Is that going to have costs? Is it going to be standalone? Safety and use case is very important for folks. I believe Microsoft at one point was doing something that they said, we know that our tools haven't violated copyrights. And if you're sued for that, we will support you legally. That's an interesting question because obviously the tools are learning from somewhere. So you may well in the future see copyright and use provisions. And so what is the requirements for guardrails, for moderation, for managing the prompts, et cetera? And then importantly, what is the cost of these tools at scale? It may only cost this much to buy it, but then it costs this much to use it because it's a per consumption type of a sourcing event. So being able to say, how much use do I have within a predictable band versus what is the impact of going up? So if you're asked to deal with procuring AI, number one, determine whether they're truly buying like an enterprise level platform, or are they buying a sandbox, or are they buying a specific use case? I want AI to solve this kind of problem. So it's going to be thorny to acquire AI. And I think there's a lot of conversations still to be had about how to drive that. So what are some of the next frontier concepts to know? So by far the hottest term since the inception of Gen AI as a globally available concept is agentic AI. I'm sure you guys have heard it. If not, you will. And if I'm the first person to say it, then you'll remember that, right? Agentic AI is truly deep learning that is based on both a set of knowledge and then a set of rules and instructions where models don't just respond to, they act. They can plan steps, they can retrieve data, use tools, and operate and iterate with some semi-autonomous agency. So they are actors. And it reinforces this approach of being able to have these tools to be able to take a certain set of tasks and then come check in with a human. So let's say you have a project manager that executes certain workflows or it executes certain actions on a daily basis to be able to validate where all the projects are and actually probe and ask questions to end users in order to build a compiled sort of set, an actual task and an agent. I'll deviate here for a second. You may be aware of a concept of robotic process automation, RPA. So robotic process automation was basically glorified scripts that could know how to log into, for example, a bank, have the authorization, pull down certain information, log into a finance system, pull down certain information, compare those, identify variances, and send it up to a human to act. There still is robotic process automation, but I think rapidly you're going to see where that space is, like fall into this agentic AI approach. So RAG is another concept that you need to know in this day and age, retrieval automated generation. It's where the tool is really building and leveraging these knowledge bases, both internal custom knowledge bases and external data. It has short and long-term memory. It can pull information and retain knowledge about that information. So it really accelerates and focuses it on your use case. And then they're going to be pulling those two concepts together, the agentic, retrieval automation, which combines the above, which allows it to filter and reason and answer questions. this is part of saying, what do we want a tool that can operate with some semi-autonomous approach against our knowledge base? How do we want that to act? I still think it's a little ways off for procurement to be truly impactful. But for example, if you go to Salesforce right now and you go and look at their page that they have on AI sales agents, they have a whole description, they have a model, they have pricing, they say what it's going to do, they point to how it can act with some autonomousness and come back and check with human beings. So areas where like marketing and sales, I think you'll see to some degree a little bit of coding, although I think that's still a little far off. And coders are generally interacting with AI now to help them accelerate to the outcomes and to test and validate certain code. So I don't know that you'll have coding agents as such, but certainly certain areas you will see this come forward. And again, if you go search for agentic AI, you'll be swarmed with information because that's where everybody's trying to move right now. Hi, it's Dustin Lanier. Thanks for listening. Please find me on LinkedIn for original public sector operations content every week. And please reach out to me if I and my team of procurement professionals at Civic Initiatives can help you be a public procurement change agent.